Hello everybody, it's CharmingMan here, and hello everybody. It's about time I talk about something that I haven't really talked about before, and this is about special rights and freedoms granted to particular groups and how dangerous that is for everybody else in a society. As we all know, in the ideal society, everybody follows the same rules and everybody's accountable by the same rules. There is no special treatment to be had. Nobody should be given special rights or freedoms just because they happen to be from a specific group. However, sadly, we don't live in that world. We don't even live in countries like that. I don't live in countries like that, and I bet most of you people don't live in countries like that. There are demographics, big and small, who seem to have special permissions and rights and freedoms to do things that most other people can't do. Now, I think the biggest example of this, and I mean no ill will to this demographic because I've had many friends from these people, and they are the Sikhs. Now, the Sikhs have been known to always ask for special freedoms and rights in regards to their religion, and to me it's at the detriment of everybody else, even though on the surface it seems like nothing more than just a thing that they want to do to express themselves. Now, usually it's in the workplace rather than outside in the real world, but again, these things have far-reaching consequences. So for example, in America, in this country, they will usually campaign for the right to wear their religious turbans on the job. So I guess it depends on the type of job. So they probably wouldn't wear it if they were construction workers unless they wanted to, but even then they'd have the right to do so. Usually this is in law enforcement or the army. Now in India, I can see them doing that because I guess, for a start, it's a tradition that they've always worn it in combat. They are a warrior sect in many ways. At least that's what they originally were. So I guess when it comes to the army, especially in India and the British Indian Army, maybe in the British Army in general, I could see that. But again, it's on the surface, it seems like nothing. But then they want it in the police and they want it in other jobs, even though in those other jobs, people who aren't Sikh wouldn't be allowed to wear their particular iconography and their particular national clothes or ethnic clothes. Now, would they? Because then, if they get granted that permission, if they get granted that right, that means that they can think, well, if they're going to give us that, what if we can ask for another freedom? I guess this is a slippery slope, and I'm not trying to make the slippery slope argument, but it kind of ends up like that in a sense, because then they might ask, well, can we wear these bangles, which is usually a sign to say that they are Sikh or something. That's how I can usually tell. That's what a friend of mine who was Sikh. Can we wear them in these types of jobs where we're not supposed to because we're Sikh? If we can't, that's culturally offensive, isn't it? You're not letting us express ourselves. This is supposed to be a free country, right? And then they get granted that. And then they might get granted maybe special treatment in regards to criticism now, wouldn't they? You're not allowed to criticise the Sikh religion because that could be considered offensive. And then that could also be an example to some other unscrupulous religions. Now, the Sikh religion I don't have an issue with. I don't really know that much about it, but they don't cause trouble. The Sikhs are very happy to have a drink with anybody. I've seen them, I've interacted with them. They're great. But as Lewis Laveau said in a recent stream, I can't remember which one it was, they're kind of useful idiots for Muslims. And I know Sikhs would be very offended by that because they hate Muslims and vice versa. But in the West, you are. And I'll explain why. You see, when you're asking for those freedoms to wear your turbans on jobs like being in the police and the military and in other things like that, and then you want to do other things, Muslims can see that and say, well, why don't we ask to wear our burqas on the jobs, our hijabs on the job? And then why can't we ask, even though they're probably already getting it in this country anyway and other countries? And if the Sikhs get protection from criticism and they get their own label as Sikhophobia or something, they're outlawing that. You can't criticise them or say anything hateful towards them because hate speech. They might want something like that. Because then they'll start trying to petition governments and councils to allow them those special freedoms. And that in turn can help Islamists, can't it? Because if we say anything that could be constituted as Islamophobia, we can get arrested for that, potentially. We can get fined for that. You never know. So that protects them from being criticised and allows them to do their harmful things now, isn't it? Also, let's look at the people who aren't Sikhs or Muslim and imagine how they feel. Especially, for example, the majority, well, in this country at least, Christianity technically isn't a majority, because most of the people who call themselves Christian are actually Christian. They don't believe in God. They're like agnostics. But for sake of argument, they're Christian. How would they feel to see these people having these privileges? Because they are privileges, no matter how small they are privileges, and they don't. How come they get to walk into a Tesco, if they're Muslim for example, with a burqa and not be told to take it off, while if they came in to the same place with a hoodie, they would be told to take it off, or at least the hood down? But that woman can walk in there with a burqa. You can't see what she looks like other than her eyes maybe, and nobody would bat an eyelid because cultural insensitivity, that's their privilege. That would foster some resentment, wouldn't it? Because in some of these people's eyes, they're the people who've always been there, they've always lived there, their grandparents are there, and they would see that as a particular group of people getting rights over them for no real reason other than they are this group of people, and because of this multicultural society in which we live in, they have to be granted these privileges. But you don't get that privilege because, well, you're white, you're Christian, you're the majority. You don't need these special privileges. That in turn might push them, if they are so inclined to do so, to parties like such as UKIP or the British Nationalist Party. Not saying they're the same, but this might push them towards more nationalistic parties because they don't like seeing particular groups of people in this supposedly equal multicultural society getting special privileges over them. And that will create, in my opinion, more trouble than it's worth. It would create more divides than it does people being unified. So to reiterate, when we give minorities special privileges, these things can go out of hand because these people then ask for more and more privileges, and we can't just give them these things because they're a minority status. Otherwise, they might end up creating a precedent where essentially we will be damaging social cohesion, we will be damaging relations between different groups of people, and society in a sense becomes less equal. Because how is that equal? How is one group of people being allowed to wear something but another group can't in a certain situation be equal? It can't, can it? Ultimately, I would not grant these permissions if I had my own little country. I would not grant these freedoms to minorities or even to the majority. Everybody follows the exact same rules. You have to wear this certain dress code, and I'm pretty sure, because even then, in my life, and this is probably wrong, I don't have the numbers, this is anecdotal, so you can disregard this if you want, 50% of Sikhs that I've met don't even wear turbans. So at least half of them won't be affected anyway, and I don't know about scripture, I'm ignorant, so if anybody is Sikh in my comment section and subscribers, please do educate me on this. Is there any way to get around not showing your hair? Because the reason they wear turbans is to not show their hair because they grow it out. There's something to do with that, I don't know. But is there any way around it? Can you wear a police hat? Because in this country we don't tend to wear just these little caps or anything. They tend to be quite militaristic, kind of like in World War I, or the big helmets. Surely that would still cover your head, especially the helmet, and you wouldn't be defying scripture in any way, right? So there should be ways to work around that within the current paradigm, but apparently not. Anyway, thoughts, opinions. Was that a bit too fallacious, this argument? Because I was going down the slippery slope, and I do believe in that. And I know I'm saying this as an atheist, but genuinely, I do not want any special rights that should be granted to us. Anybody. It should all be equal. If we're supposed to follow this law and follow this rule, then it should be like that. And if you can't handle that, well, tough shit. Deal with it.